And welcome back to the Drink It podcast, where we talk about coffee news, controversial coffee topics, and have cool coffee guests on the podcast, like Lance from Say Today. Whoop whoop. I'm Zach Stamey from Roastful, and I got my co-host right here, Ray Murakawa.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
And we always like to do the get it off your chest segment. We'll do a quick one today because we're excited for this conversation with Lance. But Ray, what do you got to get off your chest today?
Look, man, this is something that has been bothering me for like years and years. And I brew a lot of coffee, and just out of brewing, there's something very, very important about brewing recipes that isn't readily available on every scale. And I'm talking about like the scale, the physical scale.
Yeah.
So like when you brew like a 1-16, some people might be like, oh yeah, you have like 15 grams of coffee, do 50, and then do this, whatever it is, right? So for the longest time, I've been using the Time More dual scale, not because it's reliable, because I've had like ton of them die on me, but because of the app has a brew ratio input and output information, right?
Yeah.
So like when you do, when you have like 15 grams in and then you pour, whatever, right? 40, 45, it'll say, it'll just count up like 1 to 2, 1 to 3,
That's cool. Yeah.
So So then like if you're doing like a 1 to 6, 1 to 6, 16 to 1 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
For me, I'm just thinking, okay, I'm just going to do a 4-4-4-4.
Yeah.
Or if I want to tweak it, I'll do like a 3-4-4-5. Right? Or you want to do like a 2x bloom, you do like a 2, whatever. You know what I mean? And it's really easy to adjust your recipes because you don't have to do like insane math. And I hate math. I just want to stare at a freaking simple number and just see the thing go to like 3, boom, let's rest a little, and then go to like, a 6, and then another 6, whatever it is. It's super easy. It's so much easier than doing like upfront math and getting a crazy recipe. I want people to just be able to communicate recipes like, yo, just do a 3-4-4-5, 3-4-4-6. What are you doing? 1 to 18? Split that into even fours. It's real easy to do, man. It doesn't take any knowledge, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
And every scale should have that on the readout. I had so many scales. The first thing I look up when I look at a scale, when they post about, oh, yo, new scale coming in hot. The first comment is me being like, does this have live brew ratio on like, the scale?
Not this guy.
I don't care about your app. I don't care about flow rate. Like Time More, I don't even know if it's an Asian thing. It could be, but like they prioritize. There's a section that prioritizes flow rate input. That's nerdy. Like to me, that's nerdier than live brew ratio. Live brew ratio is like the most important thing. Fuck your flow rate, man, because it's like, I mean, then you might as well be measuring temperature and flow height, and pour height. It's that nerdy to me. Like, look, you're going to brew the way you brew. I get it. All of that takes experience. But even the dumbest newbie wants to know the ratio. And please, let's normalize live brew ratio rating on every scale. Akaya has done it. I think Fellow has done it. The next scale I think I'm going to buy, the Varia Pro has it. Their Espresso Mini has it. I'm looking at those not because they look good or the design, it looks good, but mainly because of the brew ratio is a live reading. And that is the simplest, easiest way of following recipes, communicating recipes. You don't have to think about the 0.5 or the 0.3 dose or whatever, little over. You don't have to throw away coffee because you're like, oh, I'm half a gram over. It's like, nah, you just have to look at the ratio. It doesn't matter how much. It could be a 0.7 over and you don't have to waste coffee. You're able to just go do the recipe that was given to you. Super easy to communicate and super easy to adjust when you want to experiment. I want to do 2x bloom this time. I want to do 3x bloom this time. I want to do 4x bloom this time. And then you just divide up the rest of the pours after that. Super easy math. And the companies who get it, Akaya, Fellow, Varia, there's got to be others out there that prioritize it on scale. They know what's up. you know? So please, people, vote with your wallets. If the fucking scale doesn't have a brew ratio reading like live on the screen, don't get that shit. And
Uh-oh.
I have harassed unnamed brands, put this shit there, or have a setting where you could switch it between flow rate and ratio. It takes the same amount of digits, guys. It's very fucking easy. I could go to ChatGPT right now and just give you the freaking code. Like it's that simple. Please, the market wants it. The market needs it. And we got to get a more efficient, easier way of communicating your recipes. And that thing definitely takes us there.
Well, the market might want it. I don't know, but Ray definitely wants it. So, yeah. If you want Ray to stop commenting on your first post of your new scale, you probably just need to put it on there.
So I say all this because our first guest is a wild brewer. He's actually a wild brewer, and just recently, our mutual friend was like, "Yo, he's doing, for that particular coffee, he's doing a 1 to 13." And I'm like, "What the hell? I thought he was doing 1 to 18." It's like, no, he switched it up, man. This coffee is crazy. This coffee is crazy. It's a 1 to 13. I was like, I didn't even know he was like nerd like that. But
yeah,
he definitely is.
This guy is wild with not just what he does, but what he knows. He is the man. So, Ray, should we introduce Lance from SEY Coffee?
All right, let's go, man. Our next guest is someone who's definitely well respected in specialty coffee in every aspect, from people who really appreciate great cafes to people who are nerds in the coffee space like myself, enthusiasts, always on the lips of people who are just into rare, unique stuff out on the market. And they've been around for a long time now. They've changed the palette and the landscape of what American light roast coffee is, American good coffee is. They've been on many lists as the best in the world. And this is someone who I met not too long ago, but that I've had discussions with about different things about coffee. But I noticed that every facet of coffee, he's very, very knowledgeable. And, whether it be about green buying, whether it be about anything cafe related, roast related, for me, it's like when I talk to him about brewing, it's like talking to the nerdiest brewer out there. Most people might think of him as co-founder of this amazing roastery, but I see him as just like a straight up nerd when it comes to coffee. You can ask him anything and he'll just go down to the craziest rabbit hole and have very strong, unique opinions about how things should be done. And it shows in his business, it shows in the product that he releases, and it shows in the quality, the consistency of quality week after week, time and time again with his product. Someone that doesn't waver under trends and what other people say. Although he is very, very receptive to what people have to say. He is in tune. He's reading your posts. He's very, very emotional about the good and the bad as being said. And he knows how to apply that to best navigate and stay in touch with what's going on with the industry. So without further introduction, we welcome Lance Schnorrenberg of SEY Coffee, co-owner, to the podcast. How are you doing, Lance?
Lovely. Thank you for the introduction. I hope that I live up to a quarter of it.
Lance, I think everybody has a ton of respect for you. It's honestly super cool to have you on here, and we're really grateful. Your SEY is both one of me and Ray's favorite roasters. We love SEY. I'm drinking SEY right now. I feel like him and I both probably always have some SEY pretty much always on deck. So it's awesome to get to talk to you.
Thank you for inviting me here. It's a true honor, honestly.
Yeah. So topic today that we wanted to talk about, every year there's fluctuating trends. It feels like the co-ferment has come and gone, even though it really hasn't, but it does feel like the trend, you know what I mean? It does feel like the trend is kind of on a downward spiral to some degree, but there's always some type of trend that's happening, whether that's ultralight roasts or even if that's trendy producers. It felt like in 2018, the most popular producers were Geisha Village and, Hacienda La Esmeralda, and La Palma Yucatan, and all those guys. Now
Yep.
we see producers named by, named more actually by name. So you've got Diego Bermudez, Wilton Benitez, like you've got all these different producers that have kind of these rock star status. But we wanted to talk to you because you're you own a company that has just been very stable in the best way possible, very grounded in what SEY does, and you've done that. It feels like really since SEY has been, a company. And so we wanted to just talk to you about these trends today, and talk to you about how can a roaster stand out among the trends in 2025. So
Mhm.
Lance, how would you say like a roaster or a roasting company today, amongst all the thermal shot coffees and amongst all the producer trends and co-ferments and all these things, how can a roaster stand out in these trends?
I mean, the way that I look at that, and the way that I look at these trends, and the way that I look at coffee has, I would say, not changed over the course of the last 10 years, but I would say that it's progressed. It's become more nuanced, more sophisticated, these sorts of things. And I think the thing and the problem with trends is that they're trends, right? They're like, they come and they go, they get hyped and then they die, and then something else gets hyped. But like, I always ask the question of like, what's real here? Like, what's actually behind this? Is it a trend because it's like actually cool and there's actually something interesting happening here? Or is it a trend because it's a flash in the pan and it's just like something wacky someone's never heard of before? And it's like, okay, well, if it's like something wacky no one's ever heard of before, it's like, that's great. I'm always here for innovation. I'm always here for exploration, but I always want to go deeper with it as well and be like, okay, what's underneath that? And is there anything real underneath it that is like actually like of substance? And for me personally, when I get into a lot of the exploration of processing and stuff like that, most of the time I'm like, yeah, there's not a lot here of substance, you know, in this. And like, and for me, that goes into like, like I said, kind of like the more nuanced and more sophisticated way that we're thinking about coffee and from the green perspective now than even like I was 5 years ago. And like I'll be the first to admit to say that we don't know shit. Can I swear on this?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Ray's gonna swear probably
All the
tenfold more.
fucking time, man.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Sorry, I should have asked that at the beginning. I still don't think that we don't know very much. I'll speak for myself. I generally like use things like we as like kind of coffee industry sort of things, but like I'll speak for myself here. But like I don't feel like I know anything about coffee. So, I still really appreciate and hold that like us as an industry, or at least me as an industry in this industry, is like super young.
Yeah.
Like I've been doing coffee for like 10 years, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's like if we go back to like specialty coffee, like, Stumptown or whatever, it's like, I don't know, 20 years old, 25 at the most. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like by and large, as far as like something that is like supposed to be specialized, like so new, so young, like we don't, in my opinion, I don't know anything about coffee. Like I remember when I first started buying coffee and I was like, well, like, how do we know, like, how do we produce like an 88 point coffee? Like if I taste this and it's an 88 point coffee, I'm like, what happened to do this? And like everyone around the room would just like throw their shoulders up. We're just like, I've no idea. Like it's just magic. Like sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. And I'm just like, my mind exploded. I was like, wait, no one knows how to produce like an 88 point coffee. Like we don't know we don't have like a recipe for this. And like every year we just kind of roll the dice and see what happens. And it's like, yeah, like let's literally every year that I would buy coffee, we would go down to like taste the same producers over and over again. And sometimes they were great, sometimes they weren't. And like we really didn't know why.
Yeah.
So like, over the course of the last decade, I would say that we're getting better at that. I would say like I've got a lot more ideas as to like what contributes to like high quality coffee in the cup and what doesn't, but like I still don't have a great answer to that question. You couldn't be like, hey Lance, here's all the money in the world, produce 90 point coffee. Like I would be like, okay, like I've got some really good ideas, but like I definitely can't promise you that that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So for me it's like there's so much work that can still be done in like learning what actual high quality coffee is in its purest form. Like we still don't really know. And we
Yeah.
don't even really know how good coffee can be. So it's like the coffees that we're working with now, there's a lot of people that will argue that coffee quality is going down, blah, 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 where climate change is happening, all of which is totally true. But I would also definitely on the other side of that argue that like if we just want to use Colombia as an example, like we have way better coffees out of Colombia now than we did 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have higher scoring coffees. We have a wider variety of flavor profiles. Like everything about it has just improved. So like that's what I look for when I'm thinking about coffee. It's not like it's like what is like how do we look at this as a thing? How do we continue moving it forward as a thing in and of itself? And like how do we continue making that better? Because like that is soil, that is variety, that is processing techniques to some degree, but also really not. I mean, some of the best coffees I taste are fermented in plastic buckets and dried on rooftops. You know, it's like
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
something there that like we need to do right, but I don't think it's complicated and it doesn't take like, you know, a $20,000 dark room to do. So for me, it's like, what is coffee? Like still asking that question because like I still don't think that, at least I don't think I have a good answer to like what that question is and like what is like the possibilities that we can do with coffee itself.
Yeah.
So for me, like that's like the substance, that's the depth, that's like the interesting question here.
Yeah.
And also it's like that's where variety comes from, like not like coffee variety, but like taste of varieties, different profiles. All that stuff comes from that. I mean, like for me, it's like first time I tasted anaerobic processed coffee is like cool. Like that's interesting. And then I tasted like 100 more and I was like, these all kind of taste the same. Like I'm not tasting the coffee itself. I'm tasting the process. Like I'm tasting 100 hours in a barrel. That's what I'm tasting. I'm not tasting the actual soil. I'm not tasting the sun. I'm not tasting the, you know, variety and like the harvesting, like all of that sort of stuff that goes into making coffee, what I would consider to be coffee, like actual profiles. So that's like kind of like when I think about coffee, it's like that's what's real. That's the depth. That's the you know, the actual tangible thing that we can talk about rather than being like, you know, what is this co-ferment or like what is this whatever. It's because like it's just like I don't really know. And
Totally.
also it's like, are those flavor profiles like interesting? Maybe. Are they reproducible? Probably. And that's like really good, right? But like, you know, it's also just for me, it's like once you get into the actual raw product, it's like you start losing everything. It's just like I don't know if what I'm tasting is raw product or not.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if that answers your question. I'm
It
gonna also
does.
apologize. I will ramble a lot.
Most of us that drink as much coffee as we do ramble a lot. So you're in good company.
Yes. Also, I will forewarn you. I've already done 4 cupping tables this morning, so this is why I'm on sparkling water and I'm not drinking coffee right now.
There you go. You're basically saying, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of theme is remaining a learner, right? Like you're saying
For
like
sure.
remaining, I guess, moldable to some degree or malleable.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and coming from the perspective of like, we don't know shit.
Yeah.
I mean, the smartest people I know in coffee, I ask them questions all the time that they don't have answers to. And I ask them questions and they blow my mind constantly. So it's like, you know, you think you start to learn something and then until you realize you like talk to someone, you're just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You know, and then you also like the same side where it's just like you talk to people that you're like, you're supposed to know everything about coffee, right? And you're like, no, I don't know anything about coffee either. And you're like, all right, none of us know anything about coffee.
Well, it's so interesting though, because like when you meet people that really do know about coffee, it's kind of like that with everything. They're never like, I know everything about coffee.
Yeah.
You know, they're always just super humble. I remember I met Lynn Butler. I mean, a long time ago, but it was before I was in the industry. And I met Lynn, and I was expecting like just like, you know, exuding confidence and that kind of thing. And Lim's just a humble, meek kind of guy. You know, he's just like super sweet, and that I think is a pretty common theme for a lot of people that do know a lot about what they're doing. So,
yeah, I think that like it's a healthy perspective of like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And coffee, yeah, it's also like you can take things and like make them whatever you want. I mean, coffee can be as simple as like, make it brown, smash it, put water on it, and that's going to taste like coffee. And then it can also be like, let's get into bird geometry. Let's get into like particle size distributions and, efficiencies of extractions and like all of that sort of stuff. And it's like, it really can be held in the same world, and
Yeah.
I think that that's really important to remember.
Lance, do you think that like a lot of the trends and like a lot of the current times, because there's so much going on in the industry, there's a lot of noise, and then there's a lot of there's less stuff that's like really, really like banging awesome stuff, but there's a lot of noise and it's hard to stand out in that noise. Do you think these times necessitate companies going into other avenues, expanding their businesses to do different things, and besides just being a roastery? For instance, like, AJ from Kumquat, like they've got, they've got Kumquat, but they've also got Loquat, and they've got Fondry, their bakery, and they've also got their green coffee store now. So they've got like
Oh,
these different they've got like these different yeah, they've got like these different avenues for things.
okay,
So there's that mentality.
sure,
Um, do you think that's or like a Patrick Rolfe, for instance, he's
sure.
got all of his different brands. Do you think that's a necessity for roasteries, or do you think that that's not necessarily something that has to happen for a business?
I mean, I think that the most, for me personally, and like this is again me, there's a lot of different ways to run a business, right? So it's
Sure,
like, one, I think the most important part is like, what are you interested in
sure,
personally? I think that like, having love and passion and care for what you do is like really meaningful. So, um, if it's like and we also talk about like, do we need to do a line of coffee that's like more accessible, cheaper price point, blah blah blah, and then do more volume. There's a lot of really amazing arguments for that model. I mean, you can buy bigger volumes, you can buy lower quality copies from the same producer you're buying your top lots from by giving them like better access to market, better prices for their lower point copies. There's like a lot of good that can be done in that space, but like for me, I always come back to like at the end of the day, like I don't want to do that. Like I don't
yeah,
want to do QC on those coffees. I don't want to
yeah,
roast. I don't want to spend my life roasting those coffees. And it's not to say that like other people shouldn't do that either. Like they totally should. I have some really amazing friends that have decided to like start roasting 84 point coffees because they really believe that 84 point coffees need better access to market and better prices for those coffees, which is 1,000% true. So it's like what is meaningful for you and like what drives you and what are you passionate about, I think is always going to be the best thing to motivate your decisions. Um, I think that in coffee, I think that we kind of get caught up into like trying to appease consumers for like whatever reason. Like this goes back forever. I mean, like working in my very first coffee shop, I'm like, why do we do this? And they're like, well, Dad, like we can't not do that because the people will yell at us. Um, and this could be as simple as and silly as like, why do we have vanilla syrup behind the bar or like whatever?
yeah,
Because like people demand vanilla lattes, so we give it to them.
yeah,
And and like I think that that's like I think that because we've come out of like a more commodity driven market, like we've kind of like have really had a hard time pushing it back against that. Coffee is supposed to be cheap. In a lot of ways, it's been free in this country for like 100 years. People just expect it to be cheap, accessible, and whatever they want. Also, Starbucks has taught everybody that it's supposed to be a sugar beverage. That's like what coffee is supposed to be. Um, so there's a lot that we're like pushing against here, but like any other specialized industry, you could look at wine, you could look at beer, you could look at anything. Like they're not trying to like be informed about their product because the consumers are telling them to do something. Like they're the masters of what they do. Like, the best brewers brew the beer they want to drink. Like they're not like, well, we need to brew it like that because like fuckhead over there wants like a shitty pilsner. Um,
yeah,
it's like they don't do that. They're like, we want to brew this beer because this is what beer is supposed to taste like, and this is what we want because we drink beer every day. We study this. We know exactly everything about it, and this is what good beer tastes like. Let's go give it to the people. And I think that like we could learn a lot from that as an industry, with being like, we are the professionals. We drink
Yeah.
coffee every day. We know what coffee is supposed to taste like. We know what coffee can taste like. We should go tell people what coffee should and can be, rather than being like, well, I guess we need to make a French roast because the people demand a French roast and they want it. It's like, well, yeah, but like, also, they've only been drinking French roast their entire lives because it's like
Yeah.
all it's been around in the United States. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's not a really good metric off of which to make a business decision, you know? And it's like, they're also not professional coffee tasters. They're just like people who drink coffee every day. So I think that there's like a lot more engagement that we can do. And there's a lot more of just like, what do we want to do and why do we want to do it? And being like, have a little bit more courage to stand up and be like, no, like this is the way it should be. Like, and I'm going to go tell people that this is the way it should be because I've actually studied this. I've practiced it. I cup a billion coffees every year. Like, I should be the one telling them what coffee tastes like, not them telling me what coffee is supposed to taste like. And like, this goes that you could look at anything, like the history of roast development is a great one, right? Like, when we first started roasting coffees as light as we do, everyone was like, this is never going to work. Like, your coffee curdles milk, it's too acidic, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, this is actually what coffee is supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be acidic. It is supposed to taste like fruit. You're not supposed to put milk in it. And so it's like, you can kind of like watch the entire industry deal with that question of being like, well, what can we do and still get people to buy our coffee? And I think it's just been the wrong approach from the very beginning. I think from the very beginning, we should have, as a specialty industry, like super separated ourselves from the actual market and just been like, no, this is what specialty coffee actually is. But we still try to like engage with like the more commodity side of the market in ways that I just like, in a lot of ways that I feel like are inappropriate from both a cost perspective, value proposition, how we develop coffees, how we brew coffees, all of these things. I still think we try to placate into like the commodity side of the market rather than just being like, no, this is a fully separate thing.
Yeah.
And I think that other specialized industries have really done a good job doing that. Like, I don't know a lot of like microbreweries in New York who are trying to compete with Budweiser. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
they're just different things.
Yeah,
And
totally.
we haven't really done that, I don't think, in like a meaningful way, or like wrestled with that question in a meaningful way.
I would agree with you on that. And I think that's something that we've been thinking a lot about just as an industry. It also just feels like as an industry that like, quality right now in cafes has also just become very relaxed. And it's kind of one of those things where I think it's one very relaxed quality, but we're also charging specialty prices. And so we're like placating to like the audience that wants those types of, beverages that they're ordering.
Yep.
And at the same time, we're still like charging a bunch of money for it to justify the prices that we're putting in, but we're not really doing anything justice. You're really not doing any party justice because you're charging them for a lot of money for what they're ordering. And then you're also not really representing what you're trying to present very well either. So it's kind of an odd anomaly, in a lot of ways, I think.
Totally. And man, there is something to be said for like, accessibility, like, and all of that sort
Sure.
of stuff. Like, I'm not standing here being like, make this the most pretentious place alive where no one wants to walk into that's not approachable, blah, 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 blah. Like,
Sure.
it's not that either. But like, between that and also like, here's a frappuccino or whatever, like, there's a lot of room in there to
Sure.
like play around to be like, how do we do coffee well with integrity and also be approachable and not, assholes about it. But I think that also, to kind of go back to your original question, I think that like, how do you stand out? I mean, because I think that this industry is so young, I think that there's a million ways to stand out. And I just think that you have to find the one that like you're passionate about and then actually do the work. And that's the thing that like I look at as our industry and kind of like what gives me pause about our industry are people coming into this industry thinking that like, cool, I've got Hacienda La Esmeralda's Instagram handle and I, put a coffee roaster in my garage. I'm now one of the best, coffee roasters in the world. And you're like, well, okay. It's like, yeah, you got like, coffee roasters are now really accessible, which is dope. You know, it was shitty when, like, you know, you had to have $100,000 to buy a coffee roasting machine. It's really cool that they're so accessible right now. And it's also really cool that you can call up, you know, some really famous estates and get them to send you, you know, 10 kilos of vac boxed 90-point coffee. You know, like, that's amazing. Like, I couldn't do that when I first started roasting coffee.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, there there's a lot of work that still needs to be done as far as, like, you know, where this industry can go, what coffee can be, how do we roast coffee, how do we brew coffee, how do we source coffee, that there's like an ocean underneath that, right? So it's like, yes, now you have a coffee roaster and you can actually start roasting like pretty high quality coffees immediately. That's just the surface. There's a whole ocean of coffee knowledge underneath that. And like, that's the practice that I talk about. That's like the, how do we take our industry into a more nuanced, sophisticated space of specialty, um, and in conversation, in dialogue, in language, and understanding, all of these things, like, we just don't know a lot. So it's like that's like more a part of the conversation that I wish more people would start entering into, but that takes understanding, that takes like learning, that takes, you know, cupping coffees every day, tasting roast profiles every day, tasting extractions every day, tasting varieties every day, getting actual varieties genetically tested, because a lot of what we taste is actually mismarketed. It's like all of this stuff is stuff that we can get way better at, and that's doing the work, you know. And it's like, I think that that's like, you know, how, like I said, like, there aren't a ton of people who are like really amazing at coffee, in my opinion. So it's
Sure.
like there's a whole world, there's a huge space for people to like come into this industry and make a significant impact and make a significant contribution to. But it takes actually doing the work. It takes being serious. It takes becoming sophisticated. It takes more than just, cool, I have a coffee roaster and I've got a few geishas.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think that that's what you know, I mean, a lot of people ask me, like, you know, for, you know, green buying, probably specifically advice, than anything else. But like, the number one thing I do tell people is just like, do the work. Like, you're only going to be buy coffee as well as you can taste it. And it takes a
Yeah.
really long time to like, develop a sophisticated palate to taste coffee. Like, you need to taste coffee every day. You know, I've been doing this for 10 years. I literally cup coffee still every morning. And, you know, so just developing like a really sophisticated palate is like one thing that takes years. So doing that work and then doing the work to be like, okay, like, where are these coffees coming from? What should we be looking for in these coffees? There's a lot to learn there, and there's a lot that we do know. So it's like, just, you know, doing the work to then become actually a part of a meaningful conversation, to then actually be meaningful, like a meaningful contributor into our industry. I think there's like there's so much space there, but like, I think it really gets stopped at, I have a coffee roaster and I have some geishas and some co-ferments. And then it just like doesn't really go anywhere from there, which is like, cool. That's a great entry point to our industry. But like, again, there's a whole ocean underneath it that I think that people need to start like wading into and walking into and exploring. But it's really hard. It's like, that's a really, really hard thing to do. And on the other side of that, I will also kind of like add to that, where it's like the standing out of like what coffees people are using to stand out. It's much easier to find like a co-fermented, overly processed, well, over processed for me, coffee than it is to find like a super clean, super beautiful, like 88-point coffee. Like, that coffee is really hard to find, you know. To get, you know, something that is more processed forward, more exciting flavors in that way, those are pretty easy to get, and like, you can make a lot of it. Um, but again, to find like that 88-point clean washed coffee, that there's just not a lot of that around. So,
Yeah.
um, good luck. If people like actually want to start, if people want to start working with those coffees, I'm just like, good luck.
Yeah.
I hope that you can find some, because they're really hard to find.
Yeah.
They're all miracles. Every time you taste one, it's a fucking miracle.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that probably leads us into the next question of your offerings. I think people who are fans of SEY notice that you don't see the same coffees listed every week. you're seeing a cycle of fresh stock. You kind of highlight seasonality and kind of rarity in your branding, and it shows. Every time I log in, there's something interesting, and I want to click add to cart, but we all got stockpiles of coffee, but there's always something attractive and rare on that site, which is fantastic, and it shows in this level of like it really communicates like curation on your behalf, and I'm just wondering like how you continue to do that. Like, how do you update your store every week, every 2 weeks with batches of coffees that some people have never seen before? And at least from my personal experience, I haven't had anything subpar from you guys, regardless of how flashy the flavor notes are or how high the price is. Everything is like, damn, okay.
Yeah.
They're doing their thing.
Ray and I were
How do
talking.
you
It
do
was
that?
like, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ray, but we were talking yesterday, Ray, and we were kind of like, it doesn't matter if you get the lowest price point on the website or if you get the highest price point. Like they're all, you're never disappointed, and it's,
Yeah.
but it's always stuff that it's so many producers and so many farms that we don't see on almost any other like roaster's website. Like you see so many people loop back around to the same roasters, which is awesome. And I think, supporting the same, you guys also support a lot of the same roasters every year too.
For sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of those similar producers as well, but there is always a sprinkle of new stuff in there as well. So yeah, to Ray's question, how do you guys do that?
Yeah, I mean, like that's my job. So, and and also, like I said, like that's what I'm passionate about, right? So it's like I know a lot of people who are really passionate about roasting coffee. There are really people who are really passionate about brewing coffee. I know a lot about things just because like it's necessary part of my job. But like there are definitely people who would walk circles around me about extraction. I will have questions. I will be able to engage in that conversation very intelligently. But like there are definitely people out there that are just like that would walk circles around me. And in that regard. Same with roasting. I do know a lot about these two things, and I have very, very, very strong opinions about both as well. But when it comes down to it, like my passion is green coffee. It's tasting coffees, it's cupping coffees, it's talking about varieties, it's talking about soils, it's talking about flavors and where they come from. It's finding new coffees, it's going and exploring new places, meeting new people. This is what I love. So like that's like I think that it's pretty evident in the way that SEY is run. And we do like I will release at least 2 or 3 copies almost every week. But that is like not because like I want to rarefy coffees or like that's because I want new copies to release every week. It's just literally because that's the size of the lot that we bought. So it's like, they're just really small, and it's really hard to find outside of like, Ethiopia is kind of like a weird anomaly that stays over there in pretty much every coffee conversation ever. But like other than that, like if you find a 10 bag lot that's 87 plus, like you struck gold. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
So like most of the time these lots are like between 1 to 5 bags. They're really, really small. And the more interested we get and the more exploration that we want to do, so like for this, I think we actually started last year, but we started doing like harvest separations. Now they're even smaller. So it's like, instead of like traditionally how that would work is you would go through an entire growing season, a producer would do a harvest pass, they would collect their parchment, they would put it in their storage, facility. They would do another pass, and then they would put that into their storage facility until they had like, a 30 bag lot, and then they would take it to the purchasing point and try to sell it as like their lot of coffee. And like we got really curious around that, and we were like, well, what does that harvest versus that harvest versus that harvest taste like? Can we like start actually separating this out so we can taste early, mid, and late harvest coffees? As it turns out, they taste different, as you would probably expect. But now those lots that because like all of that, the highest quality of that 30 bag lot that producer produced, like again, 5 bags of it is like actually top tier, like 87 plus. But in coffee, everything else is different grades. So most of the time, generally. So like now, if you're going to even separate it out by harvest, you're even looking at smaller lots. So, when you're dealing with this quality of coffee or this level of coffee and this level of like specificity, the lots are just really small. And that's like, I'll release probably something around 250 micro lots this year.
Crazy.
Just because that's how big they are. It's not like, well, we're only going to buy a certain amount of this coffee to keep it fresh, to keep it new, to keep it rotating constantly. Like we buy all of it. It's just they're really, really small.
Yeah.
But that's the world that I love dealing with. I really love tasting in different varieties. I love cupping. I mean, like I cup probably like 30 coffees to find one. So it's like if I'm releasing and buying 250 different coffees, that times 30 is how much I taste every year, which is
Yeah.
fucking crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love tasting coffees from around the world, and like it's something that I really, really, feel very passionate about. So that's like why I do that. It's not because of any sort of like insane whatever. It's like I just really like doing it. It's like that's what's fun for me about this business, and that's like why I got into coffee.
Yeah.
And I still think that there's so much coffee in the world that we haven't discovered yet. I mean, like if you were to be like, "Hey, Lance, how much do you know of Southern Wheeler?" I'd be like, "So much. I know so much about Southern Wheeler." And like every year, I find new producers to buy coffee from, and I just be like, "I've never even heard of this person, and they have like this crazy amazing coffee. Like I've never tasted. I've never
Wow.
seen anyone else taste it. No one has brought this coffee to market before, and this is probably the most purchased region in the world."
Yeah.
And there's still producers down there that none of us have ever heard of that have never like sold their coffee in a specialty market that are growing 87 plus one coffee.
That's crazy.
So it's
That's
like you
crazy.
look at that in like probably the most heavily competitive purchase market in the world, and then you go to like places like Peru, which I've been going to for a few years now, but like this year we discovered so much insane coffee. Like some of the best coffees that I have tasted literally in the world, the SL9 that you're currently drinking. Like some of the highest scoring coffees that I've tasted this year. All of this had been like blended into like community lots and sold to the commercial market. Like none of
Wow.
it had been like actually separated out of the
Wow.
specialty. It's all been sold to a company who I will not name, but into huge community lots, like 15 containers worth of coffee into like the commodity like grocery store market. It's a
Oh my
grocery store
gosh.
market. But you're just like, oh my God, this is insane.
That's
Um,
wild.
so that's like super fun for me. And I really,
Yeah.
really, really like that. I like genetics. I like looking around at the different coffee plants and being like, that's different than that one. Can we taste them?
Yeah.
Um, you know, but that's the work that I really love to do. So it's like when you see us and like what we're doing that like, probably sets us apart in the industry that other people aren't doing is that sort of stuff, because like that's the sort of stuff that I really, really care about. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there's just it's a crazy world out there. So it's like, for coffee, it's like I want to go explore it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I also
100%.
like I want to like try to do better around like access to market too for producers. I think that that's like really important. Um, and like for us also, it's like what we're trying to do is try to like elevate the perception of coffee. So like a lot of people like still are like kind of operating under this like cost constraint part of the market, which is like we're trying to buy the best coffee we can, but like we need to keep it within a certain price point, where it's like I'm like, fuck that, like I think that that's broken anyways. So it's like going into these places and being able to like, wow, I can pay like more money than you've ever fucking heard of for your coffee, because like it's actually incredible. You just never had access to this market, rather than being like, um, oh wow, I get to buy this 89 point coffee at $2 a pound because like it's usually going into the commodity market.
Yeah.
It's like I
Yeah.
just scored. It's like, no, that's fully wrong.
Yeah.
You should actually pay what's meaningful price for that coffee. And and I still think that there's like we can get into the conversation of coffee economics if we want to. It's a deep one, but like I'm still operating under this like assumption and perspective that like coffee just needs to cost more in general. Like I there's this like term that gets thrown around a little bit around what do they call it on the internet, like value coffee or something like that, where it's like
Mhm.
for the money this coffee is amazing, and it's like a really good value coffee. And I'm just like, oh my God, like all of this coffee needs to cost more. Like
Yeah.
we should not be talking about like a cheap coffee tasting amazing. Like
Yeah.
I obviously like it's cool if it does, but like literally everything still continues to need to go up if we're actually going to be looking at what is sustainable prices for these micro lots. And it's these micro lots that I really need to say, like, it's around them. If we're going into like what should coffee cost from like a cost production level, in Brazil or something like that, it's way different than like what does coffee need to cost from a producer who has like a hectare of land who's producing 3 to 4 bags of 88-point coffee. So it's like those are way, way different conversations. So if we want to continue drinking coffee from like the single hectare farmer who's producing 88-point, 2-bag coffee lots, it's like that needs to be a conversation in and of itself, and that needs to have value in and of itself that we're not really talking about. So it's like all those coffee costs need to go up. We are not even close to a sustainable place as far as like what coffee is costing for those specific producers. Again, we can be like the world doesn't need a 2-bag 88-point coffee, and that producer should maybe go do something else with their lives, which is a totally, valid argument that this market and the consuming market might choose. But if we do continue wanting to drink those coffees, which obviously I do because I'm working with them, but like if we do, then those costs still need to go up. We're not even close to like where I would consider it like, entering into a sustainable place for coffee.
Yeah.
I have one producer that I buy coffee from that I think is actually like fully sustainable in a way that like actually makes sense, and that's Pepe Hihon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a, obviously a conversation that, a different conversation, but I think it's a really meaningful like part of like what we do from a sourcing side, where it's just like finding these coffees, giving these producers access to a market that will actually pay for them in meaningful ways. Again, I don't think that we're at where we need to go, but we're still like way farther along than we used to be.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a really meaningful part of like, just giving these people and these producers access to market, which they generally just don't have.
Yeah. I think we would both agree.
Just kind of coming from, just adding to what you just said, like at least like in the enthusiast space where I'm at, people don't mind paying relatively high prices for bags of coffee. But from your perspective, someone who deals with the casuals, like just come into your cafe, just overall has this appreciation for coffee nuance and sophistication become a bit more normalized through the years? Do you see just kind of this willingness to pay a lot more become a little more kind of sustainable for your business?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, this is where, like, when it comes to, like, when the conversation turns to money for me and coffee, it always, like, it kind of, like, breaks down for me because, like, when we're looking at cost per serving, in my perspective, coffee's still free. It's essentially, you could go look at my coffee wall right now. The most expensive box of coffee, I think, is, like, probably, I don't know, somewhere around $28 or $30. You break that down to a 16-gram cost per serving. If you're brewing it at home, I think you're still under $1 a cup.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy.
So it's like you're drinking literally top 0.00001% coffee on the planet for around $1, maybe less a cup if you're brewing it at home. Like, I mean, there's a lot of different economic statuses in the world. I'm one of them, but in my personal opinion, that's still free. It's just still free coffee.
Yeah.
Like most people have more money than that in their car, just like in change. And it's like
bunch of quarters and sticky pennies and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah,
but like
water costs more than that.
You're drinking a cup of the best coffee on the planet, and it's like $1.
Yeah.
You're like, this is crazy. So it's like when anyone is like, hey, coffee is just like getting really expensive, like what's going on? And like, let's talk about that. Like, hold on. Like what other anything can you consume the best of for $1-ish a serve? Like
Totally.
it doesn't make sense. So it's like, I think that like we still need to be having that conversation in a again, like it's just a more sophisticated way. It's like, well, let's actually look at the cost per serving. Let's not look at a $30 box of coffee, and it's like people a lot are like, well, like a $30 bottle of wine is a pretty expensive bottle of wine or whatever. And you're like, one, yes, but that's not the best bottle of wine on the world is a $30 bottle of wine. And also it's like technically that's 4 servings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're
Mhm.
like in a box of coffee, you have, I don't know how many servings, 250 grams divided by 16, whatever. But like, you're still talking like cost per serving, like under $1-ish. So,
Yeah. It's crazy.
it's like when you start talking about it like that, people are like, oh yeah, like it probably is like a problem. It's like an exotic berry grown on the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, you know? Brought here, roasted in the most expensive city in the world, and you're drinking it for under $1. It's like, I don't know what you want from me. Um,
Yeah.
so when you start to talk to people about it like that, I think it starts to make a little bit more
Bars.
sense for them. Also, I think that the value proposition is there. I mean, like, I've done this experiment with like God knows how many people where I'm just like, cool, let's drink Folgers and let's drink this, like right next to each other. I've never had a single person be like, the Folgers is better, like
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people can taste the difference. They can tell. And like it usually takes a little bit of time. But like anyone who I've been given a box of coffee to that's been skeptical, I'm just like, drink it for 3 days, literally 3 days, then go back and drink whatever it is you were drinking before. Like nearly 100% of those people like don't want to go drink what they were before. Like the
100%.
first time they taste it, they're like, this is weird. This is acidic and strange. I don't get it. And you're like, I know, like that's because you're used to drinking whatever. But like drink it for 3 days in a row and then go back and drink that. And nearly everyone is like, oh yeah, this tastes burnt or like this tastes bad in some sort of
Yeah.
capacity. So it's like,
Yeah.
I think the value proposition is absolutely there. I think that we just don't trust consumers to like have tongues.
Lance, I used to be an educator. I used to work for Hex Coffee here in Charlotte.
Oh,
And
word.
yeah, and we would do some public cuppings. And I've always said I've never held a public cupping where someone walked in that said, because I've had a ton of public cuppings where people walk in and they're like, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to taste the difference. I've never had someone leave thinking the same thing.
No,
Everybody's
for
always
sure. Yeah.
everybody's always just like, yeah, that's crazy how different these taste. And they might not have the words to be able to describe how it tastes different. But they
100%.
can generally say, yes, this tastes different. This one tastes better than this one. That type of thing. So
Totally.
100%. I agree with you
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
Lance, if say were to start in 2025, would you do anything differently or would you do it exactly the same?
With the knowledge that I have now,
Yeah, with the knowledge, if you you put yourself back when you started it, would you do anything different?
I mean, I would save myself a lot of like really terrible growing pains. That's for sure. I mean, like I roasted coffee badly for a really long time.
Sure.
Mostly underdeveloped coffee, like really, really underdeveloped coffee in like a really bad way for many, many years. And so, I mean, I think a lot of it is just like, you know, as I got better and as, better at tasting coffees, better at roasting coffees, better at brewing coffees, I got better at buying coffees. If you don't know what vegetal coffee tastes like, then you don't know that you're buying vegetal coffee.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the everything kind of like informs itself. And it's like as your palate develops, this is like, again, like when people ask me for like roasting consulting or something like that, I'm always just like, learn how to taste it. You're only going to be able to roast as well as you can taste. I can give you profiles forever, but like if you can't taste under or overdevelopment, then you're not going to know if it's under or overdevelopment. Like you're not going to be able to roast that good. So it's like you're only going to be able to roast as well as you can taste. You're only going to be able to buy as well as you can taste. You're only going to be able to brew as well as you can taste. It always comes back to being able to taste. So, over the course of a decade, I've gotten pretty good at tasting coffee. And so from a coffee perspective, I think it would just like it'd end up where it's at. It would just happen faster. And like, every year I get better. So it's like every year, like the coffees that I buy next year will be better than the coffees that I buy this year. Like it's a really important part of like how I operate as a person and like what I'm interested in developing and interested in doing as a human. It's just like I want to get better at this every year. I don't want to be roasting the same way, brewing the same way, buying the same way. Like there's so much to learn. There's so much to be improved. And like Columbia is like a really great example of that, right? If you go back 5 years and you looked at all of the coffees that I released from Columbia, 90% of them would have been like either Couture or Castillo, like 90% of them. Like this year, I think I released a single Couture, like maybe. Like everything is Chirosa, everything is Pink Bourbon, Aruzis, Ahis, like they're all different Ethiopian varieties. One, these didn't really exist 5 years ago because like this has all been recently planted, so they didn't even exist, these coffees. But a lot of that is because I went down there and I wanted to grow them. So like we've helped people get seats. We've really helped people do these sorts of things and like push these exporters and stuff like that to start working with these coffees and moving these coffees forward so that they do exist rather than being like, well, I guess we'll just be drinking a hybrid Castillo from Colombia for the next 100 years. And being like, no, like, let's not do that. Like let's move this forward. So, that's like a thing, but like I only got here because of the journey that I went on. Like I don't think that I would be here if I didn't go through that journey. I mean, I think everyone kind of like has their own journey. I mean, I don't think that you take Ray's, however many, years of experience Ray has at brewing coffee, take that away and be like, hey, Ray, what, brew this coffee and tell me something interesting. It's like, like you bring all of your history with you and like you have like, and you develop like, a world of knowledge and a world of like perspective that I think is like extremely meaningful. So like as much as like I did really bad things in the last 10 years and I did coffee really badly and poorly, like it has all kind of like come together and like really informed and influenced and informed my perspective of where I am now. What would I do different? I mean, there's constantly conversations that we struggle with, right? It's like, at some point, like can I source 400 microlots in a year? Like, I don't know. That's like 250 is a lot. It's like, can we do 400? I have no idea. So at some point it's like everybody as a roastery or in some sort of capacity, like enters into like a, volume versus quality conversation. Like what sort of business do you want to have? And, where does that actually land for you? And for me, like, that's always been like, well, where can I maintain the quality that I want it to stay at? As soon as like the quality starts like falling, I'm like, cool, I'm trying to do too much, or like our volumes are too high. And like with our suppliers, like I'm in a pretty constant conversation with them regarding that specifically, where it's just like, hey, like what's supply look like here? Like if I only want to be working with this quality of coffee with these like clean profiles, like how much in the world is there? And there's not a lot. So like most of my job at this point is like working on developing coffee, like trying to make more of it. It's like I said, like if someone wants to start being like, cool, I want to start roasting 88 point wash coffees tomorrow, it's like, good luck. Like if you can go find them, like by all means, but like literally, like it's really hard. So like most of my job at this point is like, how do we try to figure out how to develop regions, develop new varieties, continue spreading different varieties that have higher cup scores to different places that we think would be doing better in, that sort of thing. Like the whole Kenya project that we did this year was incredible. The project that we worked on in Peru was really, really incredible. And honestly, like my floor for quality is continuing to go up, which is like pretty amazing. But like at some point it's like, that taps. So it's like, what do you do then? And then it's like the conversation's like, I don't know, we're like flirting around with like a high-end subscription only thing, where it's like, cool, we're going to release 24 coffees, 2 coffees a month, 100 grams in each one for, I don't know, $2,000 a year or something like that. It's just like, these are literally the best 12 coffees this world produced that I could find. And go back to small, right? Because like say started out tiny and by all metrics of like roasting companies, like we're still crazy small.
Sure.
It's like we roast, around 3,000 pounds of coffee a week. counterculture roasts 90,000 pounds of coffee a week. So it's like we're tiny compared to like generally like larger, and counterculture is considered a small specialty roaster in our industry, which is like bananas, but like that's true. So it's like we're a tiny roasting company, but like once you start hitting that sort of ceiling of quality, then it's like, well, like what do we do to make this smaller to keep quality where we would really like it to be? Then we start to get into conversations around like, well, what does like a subscription of only 12 coffees a year look like of the highest quality coffees we can buy? So it's only 12 instead of 250. But and maybe we'll do that at some point, but like it's a really, 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 really hard thing to execute. every time I'm like, yes, we should do this, I like actually start thinking about the 12 coffees, and I'm like, oh my God, this like sounds so terrifying. But to be honest, like I don't know, because like I own the business, I do whatever I want. So like what would I do tomorrow if I was starting over? What would I do differently? Like I don't know, because I do what I want to do tomorrow anyways. Like no one tells me what to do.
Yeah.
And like we're constant. Like I change the way we roast coffee every week. I change the way we do everything every week. Every day I'm like, what do we do? How do we do this better? If I knew how to do it better, I would do it better. And we do it better every week to some degree, like with what we figure out and what we learn. So, I do feel bad for some companies that do end up in a trapped kind of situation where we're like, well, shit, like now we've built this business and I would love to change it, but we can't because we have like a base or whatever that we can't, fuck with. But like we just never have done that. It's like every week, like we have no price tiers that we like stay in, like everything floats with the market. So like all the coffees that we release, it's priced based on what we paid for it, like everything. So it's like we don't like handicap ourselves or like put us into any sort of like price constraints, anything. It's like it all floats. So there's a lot of things that I would really love to figure out, problems I would love to solve, but we don't have solutions for them yet. So like those are still just like things that we're working on figuring out. Like actually like real sustainable packaging would be fucking amazing, but it's like you got to ship it in something, so it's like we're still working on that. Like that's something that would be, huge. A perfectly clean natural is like, that is like my holy grail. It's like I've been working on perfectly clean natural coffee for like years now. I'm flying to Panama on Sunday to taste a couple experiments, but like that is like a miracle for me, because like then you're like, cool, we're not wasting water. I actually think that the flavor profiles of those coffees are better. There's more fruit in them, but if you can keep them clean with zero fermentation in the cup, I think that that's like the best coffee in the world. It's just really, really, really hard to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're working on that. We're still working on trying to get producers to like switch over to organic. You know how many organic coffees are around the world that are like 87 plus? Like zero. Like Peru is amazing for that because they're still growing organically there, but like none of the farms that we work with in Colombia are organic. And like you can't ask producers to switch over to organic and watch the quality of their coffee like fall off a cliff, their yields fall off a cliff. So it's like, I get it, but like, so there's like still so much work to be done.
Yeah.
But again, like we're just, it's like we're working on that every day, every year, trying to make that better. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I'm still like, a purist at heart, right? So it's like, I'm still looking for the most terroir specific, clean profiles I can find. Like that's not really gonna change.
Lance, I feel like in a world where coffee roasters are more accessible and like roasting knowledge is more accessible, the question that Ray and I have also been asking is like, how do roasting companies continue to provide, value to the industry? Obviously they have so much value, but like it's so easy also now to get green coffee to your door and get, you get like a roast sample roaster, get some green coffee to your door, and you can roast pretty good coffee. I think
sure.
But I think you answered that question without us asking it 100%, because like what you're doing, I think I think us as consumers and us as people in this industry have a lot of gratitude that we need to show towards people like you and people that are doing the work that you're doing, because it sounds like because of you and because of other people that have your heart, you're really helping the industry to progress, and you're really helping the coffee around the world to get better. So honestly, like, thank you, and thank you for what you're doing, because I think
Yeah,
it's
I
really
mean,
cool.
it's pretty, it's selfishly motivated, honestly. Like, it's stuff that I want to be doing anyways. But I do appreciate it. I do think that there's like one more thing that I want to talk about, like people who are like thinking about starting a roasting company or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and people, I actually had this conversation with a friend recently about like, is there like a high end market or whatever? And like, what does a high end market look like? And is that a thing? And I'm like, no one really knows, because like no one has really explored that in like a really meaningful way. There are a few like higher end subscriptions like on the market at this point, but like I don't personally feel like they're executed that well. um, and like so it's like, if you had one that was like super, super, super well executed, like what is the market? How big is that market globally? Like I don't think anyone really has a good answer to that question. But like even that aside, like I live in New York City, which is like I think the biggest city in the United States. And if you like drive 2 hours in any direction, you hit a town, there is zero good coffee there. Like you can't find it. It's
Yeah.
like if you go to Hudson, if you go to like anywhere, like you can't find good coffee. Like you drive anywhere out of like a major metropolitan city, like there's no specialty coffee there, like at all. Like
Yeah.
there's so much room for like this country to be like, if you want to start a coffee roasting company, like go to a town that doesn't have any coffee in it. They're everywhere. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's crazy. And like every time I travel or every time I have to go on a road trip, it's always like, fuck, where am I going to get coffee? It's like literally, it's like all of a sudden you go from New York, which is like, we have like pretty good coffee here,
Yeah.
to like, you drive in 2 hours and you're just like, shit, like there's no coffee anywhere. Like anywhere. Like, what do these people
Crazy.
drink? Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So it's like there's a huge, huge part of the population just in the United States that has never even heard of specialty coffee. So it's like and they drink it every day. So it's like the market of the US is enormous. Like we are not even close to saturated as far as like how many coffee roasters the United States needs. We need like 1,000 more coffee roasters so I can drink their coffee when I go to whatever town they're in,
Yeah.
because right now there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
like we literally could use 1,000 more. There isn't, if 1,000 came to New York, it'd be like, yeah, like maybe we're oversaturated in this market. But like the US as a whole
Yeah.
is enormous. And like it could literally 1,000 roasters could pop up over the entire US tomorrow, and the world would be a better place for it. So like you do have to go. You have to do what I did in Brooklyn. Like when I first started roasting light roasted coffee in Brooklyn, like everyone was like, this isn't gonna work. Like there is labor to be done there, but like I said, like if you just have people taste it a few times, everyone is like, oh, okay. And like every second city, like a second whatever tier city in the United States needs a coffee roaster in it. So it's like there are so many places to start a coffee roasting company. And um but like again, like if we're kind of just like all trying to share the exact same market without growing the market, yeah, it can feel a little overly competitive. It can feel a little saturated. But like again, we're talking about 3% of the United States, I think, drink specialty coffee. That's 97% of humans in the United States that still needs access to specialty coffee. So it's like we just actually need to start taking the coffee to them rather than being like, how do I compete with you in the New York market? Because then it's like, oh, I don't know, like good luck, I guess. Like, I don't know. But like in the United States, I think that there's like so much room for roasting companies to get a foothold, to roast whatever coffee they want, whether it's co-fermented, whether it's you know, whatever coffee they want, just like roast it and give it to the people. Cause like there's a lot of people out there that still need good coffee, and we're not serving them as an industry yet. So like, I think that the market is huge. So like if anyone is like, hey, like, is there room for a new roasting company in the US market? I'm just like, yeah, absolutely. There's like so much room. It might not be in New York. It might not be in San Francisco, but like, or Chicago, like it's like, or LA. That's like 4 cities in the United States. Like pick another one.
Yeah.
While we're on this topic, we wanted to take a moment to clarify something because we were talking with Lance after the show, and he wanted to say that he really believes that there are a lot of great cafes in small towns and small cities across the U.S. right now. Here's what he said. I was trying to make a point that I believe there is so much room left in the U.S. for cafes. However, I also wanted to acknowledge that there are now many more amazing coffee shops now in smaller cities and towns across the U.S. doing incredible things. In some ways, this is the most exciting place for innovation and cafes in the U.S. right now. Now, back to the show.
Yeah,
so
I
it's
would
like,
argue some of the big cities still need some good coffee too. to
for
be honest with
sure,
you.
100%.
Ray,
Especially
do I need to talk about
cafes.
that?
Especially cafes.
Especially cafes.
It's
100%.
like,
100%.
if you were like, where should you drink coffee in Manhattan? I would be like, I don't know. Like, like I still don't think Manhattan has like a world-class coffee shop in it. So it's like, there's so much need in the world for like to do coffee better. But again, it's like, what are you going to bring to the industry to like help and make it move along? Do we need another mediocre coffee shop in New York City? Not really. I can definitely answer that one for you. It's like, we don't need another mediocre coffee shop in Manhattan. So it's like, if that's what you're trying to do, how about no? But like, if you want to do something really cool, interesting, again, do the work to actually do something awesome and do something really and like cool in coffee, because there is so much space to move it forward and improve it. Yes, anywhere. We all need that. But like, if it's just going to be like, another fucking coffee shop or whatever, or another like coffee roaster that's just like, here's a new cool brand. It's like, I don't know if we need another cool brand. But like, we do need people doing the actual work in coffee to like help us move it forward, help the industry progress. And I think that anyone would agree, where it's just like, if you were to be like, how many amazing coffee roasters are in the world? That would be like a handful,
Yeah.
at best a
Mhm.
handful. So it's like, there's enormous amount of space to like continue moving things forward and push things forward. It's just like, you actually have to do the work and become sophisticated and like practice and learn, and that doesn't happen overnight. It's just like, but I think that that's with anything. Like, you wouldn't wake up tomorrow being like, I want to be a sommelier. It's like, no, you have to actually work to become a sommelier. That's like a thing you have to learn how to do. And I think in coffee we get really lazy with that, and like,
Yeah.
and a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but in coffee, like, it's also like a thing where it's like, allocations exist, ladders do exist. If like I wanted to open up the new cool, like, amazing natural wine bar in Brooklyn tomorrow, like, I can't. Like, I don't know how to taste it. I don't have access to that supply chain. I don't have access to those importers. I don't have access to those producers, and nor should I have access to those, because like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Right?
Mhm.
Like, the people who have been doing it for 10, 20 years, who are really good at it, they get that stuff because they know what they're doing. And, it's the same thing in coffee, where it's just like, you have to learn, you have to get good at it, and you have to like spend the time to like educate yourself and learn about it. And then you'll start, like, doors will start opening for you. But to just expect to be like, cool, I'm going to do something like in coffee tomorrow and expect that you're going to get the best green coffee in the world is absolutely crazy. It's like, of course you're not, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
so like that for me is like, I don't know. If I could say anything, I think that like, that's what I would love to see the industry like grow up into, is like actually kind of like a sophisticated, like, let's do the work. Like, if we want people to take us seriously as an industry, we have to take ourselves seriously as an industry. And we have to do the actual work to take ourselves seriously.
Yeah.
To then ask the rest of the world to take us seriously. I think that it's like a relatively, okay thing to say.
Definitely.
That's awesome. Ray, I don't have any closing thoughts other than a thank you to Lance for coming on the show and sharing just all that knowledge with us, and just super grateful. But do you have any closing thoughts on anything, Ray?
No, I don't. It was a lot of great inspiration and unique perspective that we need right now, because just being in specialty in your own chambers, it feels like, okay, the same thing's happening all the time. But it just sounds like what Lance and SEY is doing has so much more work to do. Even though we look at them like, okay, they reached this peak, they're at this plateau, they're cruising with like the best coffees, boom, boom, looks just like some well-oiled machine. But like, just getting your perspective, it seems like, no, there's like stuff in the background that's like way bigger that we don't know about, that we need to continue to explore and push. And even if it looks like it's all gravy like this, it's like, no, it's like so much more going on. It's great to hear that, man. Especially from someone,
no, I think that
you think is at the top.
yeah, like I fully expect coffee to be in 5 years way different than it is now. I think that I think it's changing. I think it's changing so fast. I think that there's so much from in every perspective. I think that on the roasting side, we're getting pretty good at roasting, so I would say that that's going to change a little bit, not a lot. But it will continue to change. It will continue to get refined and refined and refined and refined. But on the green side, like there's so much to improve. Like we're gonna have coffees to taste in 5 years that just don't even exist right now. A lot of coffee to taste in 5 years that don't exist right now. Like
that's
that
exciting.
It's just it's there is like a whole world behind that.
I was so excited. Did you release SL9 last year, or was this the first year that you released SL9 lots?
So I did release it, but I just mismarketed it. I recently used it as geisha, and it wasn't geisha. So Mario Azorsa, last year's with that coffee was unbelievably good. But I released it as geisha. That was wrong. It was not geisha. But the story with SL9 is also way more complicated. And I wish we had time to talk about it on this show.
Yeah.
But if we want to talk about it later, we can. It's most genetically similar to SL9. And Christoph, the geneticist that we used, said scientifically it's like fully within like scientific okayness to market it as SL9. But it's not SL9. And what it actually is an entirely a long story that we can get into next time you invite me.
That's maybe a next episode that we'll have to do then. That's cool.
Yeah. But it's a really cool place. It's a really cool thing. Those coffees are going to be unbelievable. They're so good.
I've loved to get the drink.
They're fantastic now, man.
Yeah, they're great. Lance, thank you so much, man.